HighBridge, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Path of an Eagle, How to Overcome and Lead After Being Knocked Down, by Fantom. Forward by Tana Amon, BSN, RN. Read by Fantom. This one's for you, Grandy, Grandma, Joy, and Missy. Thank you for continuing to watch over me. Until I see you all again someday soon. Forward by Tana Amon, New York Times bestselling author. The Path of an Eagle is more than a self-help book. This is a story of transforming pain to purpose. Jay's life story will astound you, inspire you, and help you realize you are not alone in your struggles. As someone who has overcome significant childhood and adult trauma, I was enthralled by Jay's story and life lessons. Despite our obvious differences, I was again reminded that people have more in common than we dared to imagine. Regardless of your gender, race, or circumstances in which you were raised, we all suffer from the human condition. As a woman who is old enough to be Jay's mother, I was amazed how much I could relate to nearly every part of his story. His courage to share deeply personal, vulnerable experiences is commendable and helped me understand the struggles of a young male, which oddly were not so different from the struggles I endured as a young female. At Amon Clinics, we believe that illness and healing occur in 4 circles. Biology, the physical functioning of your brain and body. Psychology, how you manage your mind. Social, your connections to other people. People are contagious. Spiritual, your purpose for being on the planet. The circles are much like tires on a car. If one tire goes flat, the car won't drive very far. If more than one tire goes flat, the car will likely crash. Jay's rollercoaster life story is a perfect example of why healing needs to occur in all 4 circles to sustain healing. Like Jay, I have experienced the pain of having a serious imbalance in each of these circles. Only when care is given to balance each area of life will we finally recognize our true purpose and meet our potential. The Path of an Eagle is a journey of self-discovery and one brave young man's fight to rise above tragedy and become a light for those struggling in the darkness. Through his experiences and story, Jay shares his steps for success. Tana Amon, BSN, RN, New York Times bestselling author of The Omni Diet and The Relentless Courage of a Scared Child, VP at Amon Clinics. Words of thanks and acknowledgements. If I were to thank everyone who has inspired this book, it would take another book just to thank all of them. I am extremely grateful for each person who has been there for me through the ups and the downs in my life. I firstly and most importantly want to thank God for enriching my story with countless blessings, never-ending joy, trials, and love. Thank you for placing me on the path of an eagle and for giving me the strength to hope in you and soar high in my life. To my wonderful, hard-working parents, John and Fiona, it is difficult to put into words just how thankful I am to you both for the way you raised me. I love you to heaven and back again. My brothers, Nathan and Jonathan, I'm grateful for your support over the years. I may not say it enough, but I love you both. To Uncle Paul, the man who inspired me to get into film in the first place, thank you for all your support, guidance, and love over this crazy journey. To Grandy and Grandma, I truly wish that you both could be here to experience my growth and be part of my life. You were both taken too soon. I will forever honor and carry on all the advice you gave me and spread it far and wide to make you proud. I can't wait to see you both again. Keep on soaring up in heaven for me. And please give Joy and Missy a hug for me too. I also want to say thank you to my editor Michelle Perry from Wordplay Editing Services for seeing my vision and taking it to newfound heights. I am grateful for all the support and guidance you provided along this fun process, answering all my questions and calming my nerves. Thank you to Michael Francis McDermott who connected me with Michelle. You are golden, my friend. Tana Amon, thank you so much for writing the foreword of this book, for your continued support, love and friendship. It means more to me than this side of eternity can show. Thank you for saying yes. To Gabby Bernstein, Thank you for giving me that extra push that I needed to jumpstart my creativity. You are awesome. To those people who agreed to endorse my book, I honor your words, sincerity, time, and generosity, and I'll forever be in your debt. To my publisher, Post Hill Press, thank you for getting this book out into the world and for giving me a chance. You turned a dream of mine into a reality. Thank you, Deborah Englander, for seeing my book as something special and for believing in me. Thank you to the incredible team who worked tirelessly behind the scenes. Heather King, thank you for putting up with my constant emails and asks. You are a godsend. To Devin Brown, for all your work with publicity, thank you for giving it your all. Emily Baird, you beautiful human being, you. We did it. Thank you from every ounce of my being for your persistent efforts and your infectious, never give up attitude. Thank you for believing in me and the Storybox. We are the dream team. For every single person that has been a part of your Storybox and believed in me, I just want to say I am deeply humbled by your generosity, friendship, support, and kindness. Without your sacrifice, I wouldn't be where I am today. Keep on soaring. Introduction. Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on the wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Isaiah 40:31. It's time for you to soar. Dear listener, whatever you are going through in your life, whether it be good or bad, I know that this book will help you. When I originally sat down at my desk with my old iPad Pro in 2019, I wrote from a place of pain, because that's what I was in. A lot of pain and feeling like I was suffering. My life wasn't going anywhere. I felt stuck and depressed, and as a result, that made me feel utterly miserable every day. I had no direction in my life. I never thought that my stories would eventually end up with you today, because to be completely honest with you all, I gave up writing altogether following the completion of my first draft. I was so ashamed of it, and I allowed these horrible negative thoughts to take control of my life. This way of thinking only plunged me further into that sinking pit of despair and misery where I have no doubt some of you are right now. I naively thought that by writing everything I was feeling and going through, then maybe it would become a New York Times best-selling book. I know, it makes me laugh too. But as I discovered, not everything you write can become a book, let alone a best-selling one. I selfishly didn't have you, my listener, in mind at all when I first started writing. It was all about me and what I was feeling. It was only when I decided to erase my blinding ego out of the equation that I was able to see the path ahead with more clarity. And so I started again, but this time with a renewed perspective, vision, and heart aimed at wanting to share some of my stories to help you overcome and lead yourself through the difficulties, the challenges, the pain, the suffering, the broken relationships, the addictions, the hate, the sinking feelings, the negative emotions, the depression, the anxiety, the stress, the traumas, all the while offering you a unique healing path forward. There will be moments as you listen that will send chills down your spine. Moments when you think to yourself, how on earth is Jay still here? There are stories that will not only be helpful, but keep you interested in asking yourself, what else can I learn next? And just when you think a story is over, it's not. I often equate life to that of a roller coaster ride. The slow, grinding, steep slopes, the fast, downward spirals, or even those sharp turns and jagged edges. Sometimes you want to vomit, while other times you get excited. So, strap yourself in, because it's going to be one heck of a great ride. This isn't a religious book, although my faith in God does form a large part of my life and identity. I'm not ashamed about it at all, and I'm proud to proclaim His name. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for Him. All that I am today and the man I have become is because of God. I owe Him everything and He owes me nothing, yet He always gives. He has given me a great story to share with you all. He has also given me insight, profound knowledge and understanding, and wisdom well beyond my years, which I am eternally grateful for, and I wouldn't change it for all the money in the world. I know there are people out there, and you may even be one of them, who have gone through far worse than what I have. And I'm certainly not trying to take away from your story at all. In fact, I want to do the complete opposite. I want to amplify your voice and story. I like to encourage you to share it. You, my dear listener, have a unique story. And in case no one has ever told you this before, it's incredibly valuable. We may never know the impact our stories can have on someone else, but that should only encourage us to be bold enough to share them. Do you agree? I firmly believe that when we choose to lead forward with courage, empathy, and kindness, and when we share our most vulnerable stories with others, it can help others as well as ourselves heal. That's the true power of stories, and I've seen them in action on my podcast, The Storybox. I consider it selfish not sharing my story with people. So, what I would like you to ask yourself is, who am I to hold on to something so precious that could impact someone else in a positive way? You might not be ready to share, and that is fine, but please don't stop yourself from thinking about it. The eagle is a symbol and picture of hope and leadership. Please keep that in mind as you take this journey with me. And remember that eagles weren't created for the ground. They were designed for a special purpose like you were, to soar high above the clouds, reaching for the heavens and newfound heights. When faced with difficult circumstances, the eagle remains ever present and focused. It's determined to spread its mighty wings and take flight, navigating through the harshest storms. That when beaten down, it doesn't stay down. The eagle rises back up and chooses to soar higher than it did before. Eagles love to embrace challenges because they know that these challenges make them more effective leaders. In fact, eagles get excited about what's next. I only wish that I had these stories and the wisdom that they carry available to me at a younger age. Maybe I might have been able to overcome a lot of the suffering I endured earlier, but this side of eternity, I'll never know. However, I do pray that you, my new friend, consider with an open heart and mind what my stories and the stories, lessons, and wisdom of others mentioned in this book have to offer you. These others, like me, have decided to walk down a path that leads to fulfillment, unspeakable joy, learning, and growth. What is this path called, you may ask? Well, I like to call it the path of an eagle. Will you join me in walking down this path? Chapter 1. The Pain and Power of Stories. Your story matters. When I was a little kid, I used to make up stories of who I was going to be when I grew up. I mean, what kid hasn't? But I wouldn't have believed you if you had have told me that my life would become a living roller coaster ride with steep slopes and quick turns, pain that I would never wish on my worst enemy, and insurmountable suffering. Back then, as I was going through the pain, I would have tried to avoid it all. Perhaps I might have even chosen a simpler path with less pain and suffering. Some pains I chose to bring on myself, while others were thrust upon me and were unavoidable. I would like to encourage those who are currently experiencing moments of pain and suffering. Your story still matters. It still holds value. Don't ever think for a second that because of the kinds of pain you have gone through or are going through, that your story is any less valuable. Don't ever think that that pain or suffering has made you a broken person. Because, my friend, that is simply not true. One question I ask some of my podcast guests is, if you had another chance at life, what would you do differently? This thought has crossed my mind many times over the years, but I can honestly say, looking back now, that I wouldn't change my path for anything, not even for all the money in the world. I see my story as valuable because of the pain I have endured, and no monetary amount or the ability to restart my life will ever change that fact for me. And so today, I encourage people to experience and embrace pain, and you'll soon learn all the reasons why. The power of pain. It's sad to think that there are people out there who have gone through the unthinkable. Nobody wants to go through pain. Yet pain is ultimately an inevitable and unescapable fact of life. Andrew Scipione, the former Police Commissioner of New South Wales and one of my first guests on his Storybox, summed up his experience of pain and suffering in one of the most profound and real definitions I've ever had the privilege of hearing. He said that nobody wants to see others or their loved ones in tears or to hear of a traumatic experience that someone has endured. For Andrew, pain was an inevitable fact. It was part of being a cop. But as Andrew wisely said, how you allow the misery to affect you, that's optional. The only person that is going to allow the pain to affect you is you. He told me a crazy story of arriving on the scene of a serious car crash. The driver was pulled from the car wreck, and Andrew held the man in his arms. He watched as the life went from the man's body, and he realized that once we were gone, there was no physical pain. And this was in fact a gift for both the deceased and the ones left to carry on. And because of this, we have a choice to allow our existence to be ruined by the painful, traumatic experience, or decide to rise above it all and move forward in our lives. After hearing this, I felt chills run down my spine. I then reflected back on the many pains I had endured and realized that I had wasted my life by letting the pain engulf me for such a long time. And so, from that moment on, I chose to continue to rise above my traumas and instead use that pain in my stories to help others who might experience something similar in their own lives. There is one bird that tries to inflict a great deal of pain on an eagle. As the eagle is flying, the crow will sit on the eagle's back, biting its neck. The eagle doesn't respond or fight the crow, as it doesn't believe in wasting its time or energy on it. The eagle is a wise bird, and instead of wasting time on the pain, the eagle opens its enormous wings and begins to rise higher in the sky. The higher the eagle climbs, the harder it becomes for the crow to breathe. Eventually, the crow will fall off due to the lack of oxygen. We waste so much of our time and energy focused on the pain in our lives, which brings us down. When we focus on the pain life can bring, that will lead to suffering. Stop wasting your time on pain. Be like the eagle when a crow comes to inflict pain. Rise higher. Stay true to your path, learn what you need to learn from the pain, and continue to move toward new heights. The power of your story. Stories have a huge impact on our daily lives. They have the power to connect us all from vast expanses of our world, and yet stories also have the power to disconnect us all too. We currently live in a world where the media plagues our screens with dramatic stories to create tension and often to cause fear. That's really a perfect example of how powerful stories are. They dive deep into our psyche, and if we aren't careful, the fear-based stories can control our beliefs on what's real and what's not. Whether we realize it or not, every one of us is creating stories every day. And while you may not be writing a book about all the stories that you create every day, people are watching your stories, children in particular. Think about this for a moment. It could be that a child might take what they've seen of your story to his or her parent, or share it with their friends on the playground. Your story could either set a good example and create positive change and growth, or it could do the opposite. God gave us an incredible gift called free will, the ability to choose. But with that free will comes consequences, good or bad. I don't know about you, but I want my story to leave a positive ripple effect for not just children, but the whole world to be inspired by. What choice will you make? I know that you haven't heard my whole story, but trust me, you can save yourself from a lot of pain if you choose to wisely work toward making a positive difference in the world. The world already has enough negative influences. Why add more? Be curious and learn from stories. Growing up, I never used to be good at connecting with children my own age. I just didn't seem to get along or relate with any of their stories. I found the adult stories far more fascinating. I would always hang around people who were older than me. I loved asking them questions and hearing their responses, especially when I found out that I was learning. And boy, did I love to learn, as I still do. I was very much a curious child, always asking questions, even if they were sometimes silly. Curiosity never killed anyone important. In fact, it was because they were curious that they became important in the first place. I enjoyed reading stories of men and women throughout history, such as Martin Luther King Jr. and Sr., Muhammad Ali, Abraham Lincoln, Albert Einstein, Thomas Edison, Jesus Christ, John the Baptist, Paul the Apostle, Peter, James, and John, King David, Mary, Mother Teresa, Anne Frank, Corrie ten Boom, Margaret Thatcher, and Leonardo da Vinci, to name a few. These men and women weren't perfect, except for Jesus, but the others were far from it. Peter was a curious-minded individual. The story of when he walked on water wasn't just about faith in action, it was also about wanting to know the answer to whether Jesus was actually walking on the water. Because of Peter's curiosity, that story of how he walked on water towards Jesus has been passed down throughout generations. When you're curious, you never know where you will end up or what answer you'll be given. But don't let that stop you from asking a question or taking a step into the unknown. A huge lesson my granddie taught me was this: if you don't ask, you don't get. He used to drive me home after art lessons, which he graciously gave up his valuable time to take me to, as he said he believed in me and wanted to give me the best experiences possible. We normally stopped on our way home at a gas station, and my granddie would give me money to buy a Magnum ice cream and a Killer Python snake candy. In those days, you were able to get the giant snakes for only 20 cents, which was cheap back then. Nowadays, they rip you off for a small packet of candy, lollies. Oh, how I miss the old days, sometimes. However, when we were on this drive home, my granddie didn't seem to be in a good mood, so we didn't stop at all. I thought it was weird that we didn't stop, but I didn't ask him why we didn't stop as per our normal routine. He could obviously tell I was upset, so he asked me, "What's wrong?" I responded in a disappointed tone. "We didn't stop for ice cream and my snake." My granddie looked at me and in his wisdom responded with, "You should have asked me to stop." Turns out that just because my granddie looked grumpy didn't mean that he wouldn't have stopped. The point of this story is to illustrate two important lessons. The first is, if you don't ask, you don't get. And secondly, never be afraid to ask, for if you don't ask, you'll never know the answer. If you don't get the response you want, then that's okay. The very worst someone can say is no. Then what? You continue to be curious and find another way. Don't allow fear to control your curiosity. We need more curious-minded people. Curiosity shows a desire to learn and grow. But sadly, with our current world, we're losing our curious minds to fear, which is caused by false information being heavily portrayed on our screens. According to New York Times bestselling author, scientist, and international educator Greg Braden, there is a battle going on right now for our very humanness. What makes us more human is the ability for us to have the freedom and liberty to be curious. When we cease curiosity, we cease being human. We become robots, programmed to do the bidding of our master. How is that living? The changes in your story. Ever since I was 8 years old, my dream was to become a famous filmmaker and storyteller. And not only did I look up to the men such as Steven Spielberg, but I also looked up to my Uncle Paul, because he was a filmmaker and a lover of stories too, especially the good ones. I loved hearing all the stories about Uncle Paul being on set for major Hollywood blockbusters, which made me want to grow up fast so that I could be on a film set with him. Uncle Paul even met my idol, Steven Spielberg, and so I said to myself as a young boy, one day I'm going to meet that man and hear his stories in person. Today, as I'm writing this at 24 years of age, I still have that same dream and goal of meeting Steven Spielberg. The 12 months leading up to my high school graduation, I wanted to attend film school. However, I was advised by the people I love and respected, including Uncle Paul, that going to film school was not the best path to take at the time. I really struggled with this advice, especially when Uncle Paul advised me against going after my goal. Being a filmmaker was my dream, and film school seemed like the obvious path to take, right? Well, no. I was the one who thought he knew best. And when I look back on that period of my life, I'm grateful that I listened to the advice from those close to me. Writing this part of my story makes me cringe at how naive, proud, and egocentric I was back then. I thought that I knew what was best for my life. After the door to becoming a filmmaker was closed, or so I thought, I had a crazy idea that maybe becoming a nurse would be a wise option. My gracious mum took me to the open day of one college that offered a degree in nursing, and we did the tour, but something inside me didn't feel right. After a week later, I changed my mind again. This time, though, it was business college. I inquired about a business college near our home and instantly loved the environment and people. On the open day, I wanted to sign up and would have been accepted, However, Mum advised me strongly to at least complete high school and get my HSC, high school certificate, which basically tells you that you finished school and whether you were smart enough to get into a university or not. And then, if I was still interested, attend business college. I'm thankful that I listened to her advice again, despite the struggle it was to complete that year. One of the main reasons I wanted to go was because of one man. He was famous among the alumni. They all respected and looked up to him. When I first met him, I shook his hand, and the only thing he said to me was, "You're going to be successful one day." That was it. Then he went back and kept teaching his class. I found out later that he had never said that to any other student, yet he was saying it to me, and I wasn't even a student. My mind was instantly buzzing about what I thought real success was. The expensive cars, houses, yachts, all the cliche items/possessions we are conditioned to believe successful people have, which can be true for many people. And let me just say that having all those things is not a bad thing. It's just a very shallow way of looking at success. I eventually studied at this business college, and I found myself in a whole new world. It was completely different than the environment I was used to for the past 13 years of my life. My entire routine was shaken, and it felt like I was starting all over again, from making new friends to studying harder and allocating more time to my assignments. I was excited at first because it was all new, and I was keen to be under the tutelage of the same teacher who had told me that I was going to be successful one day. He recognized me when I walked into his classroom and gave me an acknowledging nod. I was pleased to be in his class. I was the first one to sit down at the back of the classroom, and I was wearing a fresh blue suit. My teacher looked at me and asked for my name. I replied, "It's Jared Fantom, sir." He nodded, was quiet for a moment, and then repeated the same phrase he had told me a year earlier. But this time, though, it carried more weight behind it, as he was now using my name. He said, "Jared, there is something different about you. I know that you're going to be successful one day." Before I could say anything, all the other students started piling in and taking their seats. Once everyone had been seated, we went around the room introducing ourselves to one another. My teacher never said to any of the other students that they would be successful, just to me, which I thought was very strange. One afternoon, I chose to stay back after class to complete an assignment, when all the other students had gone home. My teacher had packed up his stuff and was closing up his classroom when he noticed me sitting outside the classroom at a table doing my work. He walked over and said, "Jared, you're going to be successful one day. Keep going." And then he walked away. I felt goosebumps all over my body when he said that for the third time. This man had achieved great success in business, and he had earned millions in the process. So, of course, I thought that that's what he meant when he kept telling me I would be successful one day. He didn't have to teach our class. In fact, he traveled on a train 3 days of the week for 4 hours just to teach us. Knowing this made me respect the man even more and trust his opinion. The first semester, I was enthusiastic about being there. It was new and exciting. I was even voted the class president, along with another student. We'd oversee events, fundraisers, birthdays, and if anyone wanted to share suggestions, we'd hold a weekly meeting. One Wednesday morning during the end of the first semester, I was about to take a very important exam. This exam was made out to be the most important exam of the year. The ones that are always hyped up so that you study more. To be honest, I didn't study for this exam. I thought that I knew all the content already and the exam would be a breeze. It's funny because I wasn't great at exams. In fact, in 11th grade, I suffered a massive panic attack before my HSC trial exams. So why I thought I didn't need to study is beyond me. The time to take the exam arrived, and we all took our seats. I was a little nervous, mainly because I knew this exam was important and I hadn't prepared for it at all. My teacher walked in and asked the class if we had any questions before we started. No one put up their hand, so I thought I would be smart and ask a question thinking that I would get an answer relating to the exam itself. I asked if he had any advice for us in taking this test. He calmly looked at me as if he knew I wasn't prepared for the exam. He paused for a few moments and then proceeded to tell this powerful story. High up in the Himalayan mountains lived a wise old man. Periodically, the wise old man ventured down to the local village. The villagers all went up to the wise old man and asked him questions, which the wise old man...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?